Imagine for a second that you are a fantasy author,
Okay, setting the scene.
right? So you've just spent like the last 3 years pouring your absolute soul into this massive, sprawling
It's
epic.
a huge undertaking.
Oh, totally. You've got a 150,000 word completed novel.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you have an 85,000 word rough draft of the sequel. And on top of that, you have this incredibly messy folder filled with, I don't know, 25,000 words of world building notes.
Just absolute chaos in a folder.
Exactly. Like hand-drawn maps you took pictures of with your phone, character bios, ancient lineages, obscure magical rules, all of it.
Right.
You are 260,000 words deep into this universe. And then a beta reader asks you this really simple question. They're like, hey, whatever happened to that prophecy the old wizard mentioned in chapter 2 of the first book?
Oh, man. That is a moment of just sheer panic for any creator, or really any knowledge worker, honestly.
It's the worst feeling in the world.
Because finding that single thread, it means completely freezing your creative momentum. You have to stop everything, open up like 6 different documents.
Hitting Control F a million times.
Yes. Skimming hundreds of pages and just praying you didn't accidentally delete the resolution in, like, draft 4.
It's the dreaded friction of recall. It derails everything you're trying to do. You just want to write the next chapter, but instead you're playing digital archaeologist.
Digging through the ruins of your own brain.
Exactly. But, okay, what if you didn't have to do that? What if you had a second brain, like a dedicated, flawless memory bank that could instantly read all 260,000 words simultaneously?
Which sounds impossible, but yeah.
Right, so you just ask it, did I ever resolve that prophecy? And it instantly replies, well, actually, no. You brought it up on page 412 of book 1,
Yep.
but you completely dropped the plot line in the sequel. Here are the exact paragraphs where you left it.
It's just wild. And today we are looking at the exact engine that makes that specific scenario possible.
We are taking a comprehensive deep dive into Google's NotebookLM. Specifically, we're analyzing where the platform stands right now in early 2026.
Because it has changed a lot.
It really has. I mean, this is a tool that launched a couple of years ago as basically a fairly simple, almost experimental PDF summarizer.
Yeah, it was pretty basic back then.
But it has quietly, and I mean really steadily, evolved into this massive multimodal cognitive engine. It is fundamentally changing how we process information.
It's a total paradigm shift, and that's really what we need to focus on first, I think.
Okay, let's unpack this, because our mission for this deep dive is actually pretty ambitious.
We've got a lot of ground to cover.
We do. We are going to break down the major features of the current NotebookLM platform. But we aren't just going to list what it does, right? We are going to tear off the casing and look at the underlying AI mechanics so you know exactly how it works under the hood.
Which is crucial for actually trusting it.
Exactly. And most importantly, we're going to map out highly specific real-world use cases. We want you to walk away from this conversation knowing exactly how to apply this to your own life.
Whether you're a marketer just drowning in customer research.
Or a student prepping for finals.
Right. Or just someone who has like 72 tabs open right now and feels completely overwhelmed by information overload.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
So let's start with that paradigm shift you mentioned, because for the last few years, the public's understanding of AI has been entirely shaped by general models.
Yeah, the chatbots.
Right, ChatGPT, Claude, or the standard Gemini web interface. And those models are designed to know a little bit about absolutely everything,
Yeah,
right?
and NotebookLM flips that architecture completely upside down. When you open a new notebook, it knows absolutely nothing.
Really? Nothing at all.
It is a blank slate until you teach it. And then once you do, it knows everything about your highly specific, isolated world.
So let's start right there with the brain itself, because if someone has used standard AI tools, their first assumption is probably going to be, okay, so NotebookLM is basically just ChatGPT, but I can attach a PDF to my prompt.
Yeah, that's what everyone thinks.
But mechanically, that is completely inaccurate, isn't it?
It is completely inaccurate. To understand why NotebookLM is so powerful, we really have to understand why standard large language models, LLMs, often fail in professional settings.
They make stuff up.
Exactly. Standard LLMs are trained on this vast, incomprehensible scrape of the open internet. So when you ask them a question, they are drawing from a massive, generic, and often totally contradictory pool of data.
Right, they're like predicted text on steroids.
That's a great way to put it. They function as predictive text engines. They're simply predicting the next most mathematically likely word in a sequence based on recognizing broad patterns.
Which is exactly why they hallucinate. They prioritize sounding incredibly confident and plausible over actually being factually accurate.
Precisely. If they don't know the answer, their core programming still compels them to complete the pattern. So they just invent a plausible-sounding fact.
Which is terrifying if you're a lawyer or a doctor.
Right. But NotebookLM, however, does not rely on its open internet training data to answer your questions. It operates on a closed architecture. It's known as source-grounded AI, or specifically a closed retrieval augmented generation system.
Okay, let me stop you right there because retrieval augmented generation, or RE, as I know the industry calls it, that sounds like some very heavy jargon. Let's break that down for the listener.
Fair enough.
If it's a closed system, it's essentially fenced in, right? It's like a walled garden.
Think of it this way. NotebookLM only has access to the sources you explicitly upload into its workspace.
Just what I give it.
Exactly. On the free plan, you can upload up to 50 sources per notebook. And on the paid tiers, that scales up to 300 or even 600 separate documents.
That's a lot of PDFs.
It is. But when you ask it a question, it is physically restricted from pulling from its general internet-wide training data to formulate the factual basis of the answer.
So it can't just guess.
No. If the answer does not exist in the documents you uploaded, it is programmed to simply tell you, hey, I cannot find that information in your sources.
Wait, I have to challenge that premise a little bit.
Go for it.
If it's truly a closed ecosystem, and it knows literally nothing except the 5 PDFs I uploaded about, say, 18th century French architecture,
Okay.
how does it understand English? How does it know how to format a bulleted list or a table? It must be using some of its outside brain,
But
right?
that is a brilliant distinction, and it gets right to the heart of how Remeg actually functions. We have to separate two things: the reasoning engine and the knowledge base.
Okay, reasoning engine and knowledge base.
Right. The underlying AI model, in this case, Gemini 1.5 Pro or Gemini 3, depending on your tier, provides the reasoning engine.
The brains of the operation.
Yes. That engine brings its mastery of human language, its understanding of grammar, its ability to organize logic, and its capacity to synthesize complex concepts. That is the foundational intelligence.
Got it.
But the knowledge base, the actual facts, the names, the dates, the statistics it uses to build its response that is strictly limited to your uploads.
Ah, I see. Okay, so it's kind of like hiring a world-class, genius-level structural engineer.
Okay, I like this.
The engineer already knows all the laws of physics, right? And they know how to use every tool in the toolbox. That's the reasoning engine.
Right.
But you lock them in an empty room, and you slide a blueprint under the door, and you say, build me a model using only the materials I slide through this slot.
Yes.
So they use their pre-existing genius to assemble the materials, but they can't magically pull a steel beam out of thin air if you only gave them wood.
That is exactly how it works. And because it is restricted to your wood, so to speak, it builds a foundation of absolute trust.
Because it can't lie to you.
Right. When NotebookLM gives you an answer, it doesn't just offer a smooth, confident summary, it gives you a receipt.
I love the receipts.
Every single factual claim it makes in its output comes with a small, clickable citation number. You click that number, and the interface instantly snaps you directly to the exact source document.
Oh, and it highlights it, right?
Yes, it highlights the specific paragraph it used to generate that claim. You never have to wonder if the AI hallucinated a number or a quote.
That citation feature is honestly the killer app for me. But how is it actually doing that so fast?
It's pretty incredible math.
Because if I upload 50 massive documents and I ask a really complex question, it gives me the answer with citations in, like, seconds. It can't possibly be just using a super fast version of Control-F to search for keywords.
No, it's not using keyword search at all. This is where we need to briefly touch on the concept of vector databases.
Oh, boy.
Math.
I know. Stick with me. When you upload a document into NotebookLM, it goes through an ingestion process. The AI uses an embedding model to chop your document up into thousands of tiny pieces, like paragraphs and sentences.
Paragraphs, sentences, even abstract concepts. It then analyzes the semantic meaning of each piece and assigns it a complex mathematical coordinate. We call that coordinate a vector.
So it literally translates human language into math.
Exactly. It maps out all your documents in this massive, multidimensional mathematical space. Concepts that are related to each other are placed physically closer together in that space.
Okay, so if I ask a question,
Right. If you ask a question like, what are the hidden costs of this software? NotebookLM converts your question into a mathematical vector as well.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then it looks at its database and says, which pieces of information in the uploaded documents are mathematically closest to the concept of hidden costs?
So it's measuring distance, not looking for the word cost.
Precisely. It instantly pulls those specific paragraphs, reads them, synthesizes them, and hands you the answer with the citations attached.
That explains why it can find answers, even if the exact keyword isn't used. Like, if I ask about financial risks, it will pull paragraphs that talk about revenue downturns or budget deficits.
Because mathematically, those concepts share the same neighborhood in the vector database.
That is wild.
It is. And what makes the 2026 version of NotebookLM so uniquely powerful is the sheer scale of the space it can analyze at once. We really need to talk about the Gemini 3 engine upgrade and the 1 million token context window.
Yes, let's get into the context window, because this is where the tool shifts from being useful to being, honestly, almost alien in its capabilities.
Alien is a good word for it.
For a listener who doesn't track AI architecture updates, what does a 1 million token limit actually mean in practical everyday terms?
Well, a token is the fundamental unit of data an AI processes. You can think of a token as roughly 3/4 of a standard English word.
Okay, 3/4 of a word.
Right. The context window is the AI's active working memory. It is how much information the model can hold in its head and consider simultaneously before it starts forgetting things.
So it's like human short-term memory.
Exactly. So a 1 million token context window means the AI can hold and actively process about 750,000 words at the exact same time.
To put that in perspective, earlier AI models from just, a few years ago, they had context windows of maybe 4,000 or 8,000 tokens.
Right. Older models reading a long document were essentially like a person navigating a dark, massive library with a tiny, dim flashlight.
Okay, I can picture that.
They could read the page, the beam was illuminating right then, but to read the next page, they had to move the flashlight, and the previous page fell back into total darkness.
So they completely forget what happened in Chapter 1 by the time they reach Chapter 10.
Constantly.
I love that analogy. So the Gemini 3 engine with 1 million tokens is like walking into that same massive library and just flipping on the stadium lights.
Bam. Exactly.
Every single page, every single book, every single sticky note is illuminated and visible at the exact same moment.
It is sustained, flawless attention over an incomprehensible volume of text. You can upload an entire year's worth of quarterly financial reports, the transcripts of 50-hour-long customer interviews, an entire library of legal statutes.
And it holds it all.
It holds the semantic meaning of all of it in its working memory simultaneously. This is what enables that indie author scenario we opened with.
Oh, right, Rob Wallace.
Yes. The author, Rob Wallace, he didn't just upload one book. He uploaded his finished novel, his work-in-progress draft, and all his scattered world-building notes.
Over 200,000 words.
Because of the massive context window, the AI could instantly cross-reference all of it to track the continuity of a single minor plot thread without forgetting the context of the magic system established in a completely separate document.
Okay, so we have this massive stadium-lit brain that perfectly remembers up to 750,000 words of our specific data, and it grounds everything it says in clickable citations.
It's a phenomenal foundation.
It really is. But having a giant brain is only useful if you can actually steer it, you know?
This is a very good point.
Like, if I dump 100 PDFs of marketing research into this thing and just say, summarize this, it's going to give me a very dry, generic, Wikipedia-style output.
Which nobody wants to read.
Exactly. How do we stop it from sounding like a robot? How do we bend its logic to actually think and format the way we need it to?
This is perhaps the most significant evolution of the platform in the last year. It's the shift from NotebookLM acting as a passive reading assistant to functioning as an active, highly specialized AI teammate.
The teammate aspect is huge.
We have to look at the massive update to the custom instructions feature, what the power users are calling the 10K persona update.
Let's dive into the command center then. Because previously, you could give NotebookLM custom instructions, but you were severely limited. You had a hard cap of 500 characters.
Which is essentially nothing in the context of prompting. 500 characters is what, about 2 short tweets?
Barely enough to say hello.
Right. At that length, language models struggle because you're forcing the user into a massive compromise. You have to choose, do I want to give the AI a specific tone of voice?
Or do I want formatting?
Exactly. Do I want to give it strict formatting constraints, like telling it to only output in JSON or a specific markdown? Or do I want to assign it a role, like act as a corporate lawyer?
And yeah, I can't do all three.
With only 500 characters, you can't do all three effectively. The AI's behavior remains incredibly shallow.
It's like leaving a hastily scribbled Post-it note for a brand new babysitter as you are literally walking out the door.
Right.
Like, kids like pizza, bedtime is 8, don't let the dog out, good luck.
Good luck.
You are hoping for the best, but you haven't really given them a framework for how to handle, complex situations.
So late last year, Google increased that custom instruction limit to 10,000 characters.
That is a massive jump.
It's roughly 1,500 to 2,000 words of persistent, overarching steering directives. And these govern every single interaction you have within that specific notebook.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. 10,000 characters isn't a Post-it note. That is handing the babysitter a comprehensive, fully indexed employee handbook.
Precisely.
You can encode entire corporate style guides, exhaustive do and don't checklists, domain-specific definitions, and multi-layered psychological personas all into a single workspace.
And this is crucial because large language models are highly sensitive to these persistent system prompts. The system prompt acts as the lens through which the model views all of your uploaded data.
The lens, I like that.
When you give NotebookLM a 10,000 character brief, you are manufacturing a durable persona. You aren't just getting answers anymore. You are getting answers filtered through a highly specific engineered point of view.
Let's ground this in a real-world example from our sources, because this absolutely blew my mind when I read it.
The engineer.
Yes. There was a Reddit user who builds these complex visual automation workflows using software like NADN and Zapier to connect different APIs together.
Very technical stuff.
Right, very visual, logic-based work. And this user didn't want a generic summary of their work. They wanted a rigorous code review.
So what did they do?
So they screen recorded themselves, hovering over their automation nodes, talking out loud about their logic and the JSON payloads they were passing between apps.
Just a video of them working?
Yeah. They uploaded that video directly into NotebookLM. But the magic was in the custom instruction. They used the 10,000 character limit to program the AI to act as a cynical senior engineer.
It is such a phenomenal use case because they didn't just say, act like an engineer.
Anyone can do that.
Right. They used the massive character limit to define the engineer's exact personality, their priorities, and their pet peeves. They instructed the AI to be highly critical, to actively look for inefficiencies, to anticipate API rate limits, to identify potential failure points.
They've basically told it to be mean to them.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
To roast their code architecture based solely on the screen recording.
And it completely changes the output. Instead of the AI coming back with a polite, generic, "Oh, great job, your workflow looks solid," which is what default AI always does, it's so eager to please.
Right. It wants to be nice.
This programmed persona comes back and says, "Why are you using a synchronous loop there? That is going to bottleneck your API calls the second you scale past 100 users. You need to implement webhooks."
You have literally manufactured a veteran colleague to review your work on demand.
It's incredible.
It really highlights how malleable the reasoning engine is when given enough context. But I actually want to explore another application of this expanded prompt limit that fundamentally changes the user's relationship with the tool.
Okay, let's hear it.
The learning guide style.
Oh, yes. The Everyday AI source broke this down. If the cynical engineer is about getting roasted, the learning guide is about the Socratic method. Right?
Exactly. Normally, when a user uploads a dense 50-page technical document or a massive competitive intelligence report, their first instinct is to type, summarize this.
Because we're lazy.
Well, yeah. And the AI will obligingly dump a polished 5-page summary onto the screen. The user skims it, feels a completely false sense of accomplishment, and retains almost nothing.
The AI did all the cognitive heavy lifting.
The user outsourced the actual learning process, but with a 10,000 character system prompt, you can program NotebookLM to act as a strict Socratic tutor.
What does that prompt look like?
You instruct it, never give me a direct summary, never give me the answer outright. When I ask a question, synthesize the data, but respond by asking me a guiding question to help me arrive at the conclusion myself.
Okay, so if I upload that competitive intelligence report, the AI won't just list the competitor's weaknesses.
No.
It will start the session by asking me, what is your high-level goal for reviewing this material today? Are you looking to exploit their technical vulnerabilities, or are you looking for gaps in their marketing messaging?
Exactly. It forces you to clarify your intent. And as you explore the document, it guides your critical thinking. It becomes a thought partner rather than an answer machine.
It forces the human user to remain active in the cognitive loop.
Yes, which is the only way you actually learn.
I do have a mechanical question about this, though.
Sure.
If I give the AI 2,000 words of instructions like this massive, complex persona, doesn't it suffer from the same problem humans do? Doesn't it forget the rules at the top of the prompt by the time it gets to the bottom?
That used to be a very significant issue in older models. It was literally called the lost in the middle phenomenon.
Right.
But the attention mechanisms in the current Gemini architecture are vastly improved. The model doesn't read top to bottom like a human does. It maps the entire 10,000 character instructions set simultaneously into its active memory.
So it sees the whole prompt at once.
It weights your constraints evenly, ensuring that the cynical engineer maintains their attitude from the very first sentence to the very last.
Okay, so we have a massive memory bank,
Yep.
and we've given it a highly specific personality. We've built our perfect AI teammate.
So far, so good.
But let's deal with reality for a second. Often, the data we are feeding this teammate isn't a neat, beautifully written novel or a clean screen recording. It is an absolute mess.
It's usually a mess.
It's unstructured, chaotic marketing fluff. How do we get the AI to do the grueling manual labor of organizing that chaos?
This brings us to a crucial evolution in NotebookLM's capabilities. We are shifting from the AI being a reactive tool where it just waits for you to ask a question to an agentic tool where it actively works on your behalf.
Agentic, I like that.
We need to look at the synthesizer features, specifically the Curate, Learn, and Act framework powered by data tables and deep research.
Let's start with data tables, which rolled out back in December 2025. Because for anyone who works with spreadsheets, this feels like absolute magic.
It really does.
We all know the pain of unstructured thought. It's when you have 10 different PDF white papers describing 10 different software products, and the actual technical specs are just buried inside paragraphs of corporate jargon and marketing speak.
It is a classic problem of qualitative data versus quantitative data. Previously, an AI could summarize those 10 white papers, giving you a condensed version of the marketing fluff.
Which isn't helpful if you need numbers.
But data tables fundamentally change the output mechanism. NotebookLM can now instantly convert qualitative, unstructured text into structured, quantitative grids.
How is it mathematically doing that? Because going from reading a paragraph to building a spreadsheet requires a completely different kind of logic.
It leverages a process called extractive and abstractive structuring.
Say that 3 times fast.
I know, right? But basically, when you upload those 10 software architecture white papers, you can prompt the AI to compare, for example, a level 2 reasoner to a level 3 agent.
Okay.
The reasoning engine scans the vector database, but instead of generating conversational text, it is programmed to identify discrete variables,
Like
latency speeds, compute requirements, failure rates, integration protocols. It extracts these variables from the dense paragraphs, standardizes the terminology across all 10 documents, and plots them into a clean, organized matrix.
it builds the spreadsheet for you. There was an incredible example of a marketer using this for competitive pricing in our sources.
Oh, the sauce pricing one.
Yes. We all know how sauce companies hide their pricing tiers behind confusing features and asterisks. This marketer just copy-pasted the text from 10 different competitor pricing pages into NotebookLM.
Didn't even clean it up.
No, just dumped it in. They didn't ask for a summary. They just said, build me a structured pricing matrix. And the AI pulled the base tiers, extracted the feature limits, found the hidden overage costs buried in the fine print.
The stuff they don't want you to see.
Exactly. And it categorized it all into a grid that could be exported directly to Google Sheets with one single click.
Think about the friction removed in that workflow. That is easily 4 hours of manual data entry and cross-referencing completely eliminated. It reduces the cognitive load of organizing data, allowing the human professional to focus 100% of their energy on analyzing the data to make a strategic decision.
But the curate portion of that framework is where things got really wild and, honestly, a little controversial.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the deep research feature that launched in November 2025.
Deep research represents a massive leap forward. It is the moment NotebookLM became autonomous.
Wait. I have to stop you immediately. I am throwing a massive red flag on the play here.
I know where you're going with this.
We spent the entire first 20 minutes of this deep dive establishing an ironclad rule. NotebookLM operates on a closed RAG architecture. It is a walled garden. It only knows what you upload, which guarantees trust and eliminates hallucinations.
But that is what I said, yes.
Doesn't an autonomous deep research feature that searches the live web completely break that fundamental rule?
That is the exact question every data security expert asked when the feature was announced. And it is why Google designed the architecture of deep research so carefully.
So it doesn't break the rule.
It does not break the closed garden rule. Rather, it provides a secure airlock to expand the garden. The crucial element is that you, the human user, remain the absolute gatekeeper.
Okay, walk me through the mechanics of that airlock. How does it search the web without polluting my clean data with random internet garbage?
Let's say you are researching solid-state battery technology. You have 5 PDFs you've uploaded. You trigger deep research and give it a prompt. You say, find recent academic studies on the degradation rates of solid-state lithium interfaces.
Sounds intense, but okay.
NotebookLM spawns an autonomous agent that leaves the walled garden. It goes out onto the live web, searching databases, reading articles, and following citation trails in the background while you continue working on other things.
So it's doing the Googling for me.
Much deeper than standard Googling, but yes. However, and this is the critical security mechanism, it does not silently slip those new facts into its vector database.
Okay.
It does not corrupt your existing knowledge base. Instead, it compiles a comprehensive report of its findings and presents you with the raw discovered sources. It places them in a staging area.
The airlock.
Exactly, the airlock. You review the staging area, you look at the sources the agent found, and you must manually approve them.
You have to say yes or no.
Right. You click yes, ingest this MIT paper. Yes, add this GitHub repository. No, discard this random Reddit thread. It's not verified.
That makes so much sense.
Only the specific sources you explicitly approve are then passed through the embedding model, chopped into vectors, and permanently added to your notebook's closed database.
That is brilliant. It maintains the hallucination-free, grounded environment, but it solves the ultimate bottleneck of the curation process, which is just finding the raw materials in the first place.
Finding the PDFs takes forever.
Right. You don't have to spend hours hunting for the PDFs to upload. The AI hunts for them, brings them to your desk, and basically just waits for your nod of approval.
It acts as a tireless research assistant. So we've curated the data, we've structured it into spreadsheets, and we can debate it with custom personas.
Which is amazing if you are a data analyst or a researcher. But what if the listener isn't a text person?
That's a huge portion of the population.
What if they are a visual learner or an auditory learner? Staring at a massive wall of text or a giant spreadsheet, even if it's perfectly organized, is still exhausting for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
How does this tool actually present the knowledge it synthesizes in a way that doesn't just put us to sleep?
This is where we step into the studio. The massive expansion of the Studio panel over the last year is where NotebookLM truly separates itself from being just another productivity app and becomes a full-fledged media generation pipeline.
Media generation.
Yes, it recognizes a fundamental truth about cognitive processing. Different human brains digest information in fundamentally different ways.
Let's talk about the feature that made everyone's jaw drop when it first launched and has honestly only gotten crazier since. Audio overviews.
The viral feature.
This is the feature that went incredibly viral. You can upload a dense, impenetrable 10K financial report, a dry legal brief, or 50 pages of biology notes. You hit one button, and the AI generates a hyper-realistic 7 to 10-minute podcast episode based entirely on your documents.
The acoustic modeling is staggering. It isn't just a text-to-speech robot reading a dry summary.
Not at all.
It generates 2 distinct AI hosts who banter. They interrupt each other, they use natural pacing, they say, they make analogies and they debate the nuances of your research.
They sound like real people.
They do. They take the friction out of consuming dense material.
And the recent addition of interactive mode takes it from a neat gimmick to a legitimate study tool. Walk us through how interactive mode actually functions.
Okay, imagine you are listening to these 2 AI hosts discuss that dense financial report. They mention a sudden revenue dip in the third quarter. In the past, you just had to listen past
You
it.
couldn't ask them anything.
Right. Now, with interactive mode, you can literally tap your microphone button, interrupt the audio stream in real time, and say, wait, hold on. Go back to that Q3 revenue dip. Explain the primary cause of that to me again, but explain it like I'm a complete beginner.
It processes your voice instantly.
It does. The AI hosts will pause, dynamically adjust their generated script on the fly, and reply directly to you. They pivot the conversation to break down the concept more simply before seamlessly returning to their original outline.
It's just wild. There was a fantastic story about this from a user who was studying for their certified personal trainer exam.
Oh, the commuter.
Yes, they were a busy parent. They didn't have 3 hours a day to sit in a quiet room and highlight a massive anatomy textbook.
Who does?
So they uploaded the entire textbook into NotebookLM. They generated audio overviews, but they used custom instructions to tell the AI hosts to focus specifically on exam gotchas, common misconceptions, and practical applications of the physiology.
They turn passive reading into an active auditory learning experience.
Exactly. They just listened to these interactive study podcasts during their daily commute.
Yeah.
If they didn't understand how a muscle fiber contracted, they'd hit the mic button on their steering wheel, ask the AI to explain it differently, and just keep driving.
Amazing.
They passed the exam by completely reclaiming their dead drive time.
It takes inaccessible, static information and makes it dynamic and digestible. But audio is really just the beginning. The evolution into visual media is where the processing power truly shows itself.
Here we go.
In early 2026, they rolled out video overviews. And then in March, they launched cinematic video overviews powered by the VO3 and Nano Banana Pro models.
Okay, I have to push back here.
I figured you would.
I get the podcast. I really do. Audio is great for multitasking.
Yeah.
But do we honestly need an AI to generate a kawaii anime-style animation or a soft watercolor video of our Tuesday morning internal meeting notes?
It sounds excessive.
It feels like we are crossing the line from useful tool into distracting gimmick. Is that really necessary?
It sounds like a gimmick until you consider the challenges of high-stakes communication.
Yeah.
Particularly regarding accessibility and engagement. You have to consider the audience.
Okay.
If you are an engineer, a complex schematic makes perfect sense to you. You look at it and you instantly understand. But if you have to present that same schematic to a non-technical board of directors to secure $1 million in funding,
Hey, you'll lose them.
a wall of bullet points and a dense diagram will cause their eyes to glaze over. You will lose the room entirely.
So the video bridges the comprehension gap.
Precisely. A visual narrative can simplify a complex subject drastically, reducing the cognitive load for the viewer. If you are an educator trying to explain the mechanics of cellular mitosis or a supply chain consultant trying to explain exactly where a shipping bottleneck is occurring across 3 continents,
A video helps.
a dynamic, animated visual representation strictly grounded in your factual data, remember, is infinitely more effective than a spreadsheet. The VO3 model doesn't just make pretty pictures, it understands sequential logic.
It storyboards it.
Yes. It translates the chronological flow of your text into a storyboard, ensuring the visual metaphors accurately represent the underlying data.
Fair point. Knowing your audience is everything. And speaking of presenting to an audience, we absolutely have to talk about slide generation.
Oh, yes. PowerPoint.
Because if there is one universal truth in the corporate world, it is that everyone hates making PowerPoint slides. NotebookLM can now generate full slide decks directly from your sources. But let's be totally honest about the default output here.
It's a bit rough.
The default designs look exactly like an AI made them. They have that stiff, generic, uninspired corporate template feel.
They do. The underlying logic and the bullet points are excellent, but the aesthetic wrapper is definitely lacking, which is why the style ceiling trick developed by the power user community is so ingenious.
I love this trick.
It highlights how these different AI models can be chained together to bypass their individual limitations.
Yes. Okay, I want to unpack this trick for the listener in extreme detail because this workflow is pure genius and anyone can do it today.
Walk us through it.
If you want beautiful slides, but you don't know how to design them, you start outside of NotebookLM. You go to a design inspiration site like Pinterest or Behance. You find a gorgeous slide design that a professional human designer made. Maybe it has a beautiful flat vector aesthetic or a sleek, minimal, dark mode corporate look. You save that image.
Just save the JPEG.
Right. Then you take that image and you upload it to a multimodal model like the standard Gemini Advanced Interface.
The general AI.
Right. And you give Gemini a very specific prompt. You don't just ask it to copy the picture. You say, analyze this slide design. Describe the visual hierarchy in extreme detail.
You're asking for the recipe.
Exactly. Give me the exact hex codes for the color palette. Describe the typography, the sans serif font pairings, the font weights, the kerning. Explain how the negative space is utilized, how the bounding boxes are aligned, and the exact ratio of text to imagery.
And Gemini will output a highly technical, exhaustive text description of that visual aesthetic. It essentially reverse engineers the visual design into a styling language. It can easily be 2,000 or 3,000 characters of pure design formatting instructions.
And here's the magic step. You take that massive block of text from Gemini and go back into NotebookLM, you open the studio panel for your slide generation, and you paste that entire technical description right into the custom instruction box for the slide output.
You are leveraging that massive 10,000 character context limit we discussed earlier, but you're applying it strictly to visual formatting.
Boom! You hit generate, and you completely bypass the boring default templates. NotebookLM uses your custom reverse-engineered design brief to generate slides that look like a $10,000 boutique design agency built them.
It's so smart.
But because it's still operating inside the walled garden, every single fact, chart, and bullet point on those beautiful slides is perfectly grounded in your original boring PDF research.
It is a flawless presentation pipeline. And when you combine that with the new single-slide revision feature,
Where you don't have to redo the whole deck.
exactly, where you don't have to regenerate the entire deck if it makes one minor mistake. You can just tell the AI, fix the image alignment on slide 4 and make the text slightly larger. And then you export it directly to a native PPTX file. It completely eliminates the friction of formatting.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at the massive memory, the custom personas, the data structuring, the autonomous research, and the multimedia studio.
We've covered a lot.
We need to step back and look at the bigger picture. We are moving into the real-world superpowers. Let's ground all this tech in reality across different industries.
The unifying theme across all these features is what we keep referring to as the friction of thought. When we analyze how professionals and creatives are actually using NotebookLM in the real world, the core value proposition isn't merely time saved.
No, time saved is just a byproduct.
Exactly. The true value is cognitive load reduced.
By offloading the burden of remembering obscure facts, organizing messy data, and formatting outputs, the human user is freed up to focus entirely on higher-order tasks. You stop doing administrative labor and start doing strategic decision-making.
Let's look at the parent and educator example from the sources, because this beautifully illustrates the bespoke nature of the tool.
This was a great story.
We saw a case study of a parent whose child is neurodivergent. The child struggles with standard, one-size-fits-all classroom materials. It just wasn't working for them.
Right.
So the parent took the child's entire semester curriculum, textbooks, syllabi, assignment rubrics, and loaded it all into a single notebook.
But the parent knows their child's specific learning gaps, right? They know their triggers and the specific analogies that actually click for them.
Precisely. The parent uses the custom persona feature to encode their child's exact learning profile. They then use NotebookLM to rapidly generate customized visual journeys, simplified roadmaps, and step-by-step checklists tailored exactly to how their child's brain processes information.
And the brilliance there isn't just the initial output, it's the rapid iteration.
Because kids change their minds.
Exactly. If the child sits down with the customized worksheet and still doesn't grasp a concept, say, they get confused jumping from step B to step C in a math problem. The parent doesn't have to spend 3 hours late at night manually recreating new study materials from scratch.
They just go back to the notebook.
Yeah, they just type, hey, they didn't understand the leap from B to C, generate a new explanation, but this time, anchor the logic entirely in visual metaphors related to Minecraft, or whatever the child's special interest is at the moment.
It is bespoke education on demand. It adapts instantly. The friction of creating accessible materials is just gone.
Then there's the baseball coach example. This one actually cracked me up and I read it in the research. But mathematically, it is so smart.
It's a great application.
A high school baseball coach fed the entire massive, dense league rulebook into a notebook, along with a comprehensive glossary of baseball terminology and situational strategies.
He essentially built a strategic advisor that has perfect recall of the rules.
Right. During game prep or even reviewing film, the coach doesn't have to flip through a massive index to find a ruling. He asks the notebook highly specific, geometric, situational questions.
Like what?
Like, I have a runner on first base, a pop fly is hit into shallow right center field near second base, the wind is blowing in. Based on the rule book regarding the infield fly rule and optimal defensive positioning, what is the mathematically optimal play for the shortstop?
The coach inherently understands the game of baseball, but the AI can instantly recall the optimal, rule-based execution without the coach having to second-guess a complex regulation. It acts as a flawless sounding board.
And for the marketers and data analysts listening, the volume of data you deal with is staggering. Imagine having 100 different transcriptions from hour-long customer interviews.
That's a nightmare to process manually.
Manually reading those, coding the responses, and trying to find overlapping patterns takes a team of analysts weeks.
At least.
But with NotebookLM's million-token window, you just upload all 100 transcripts at once. You use a custom instruction to define your marketing framework, and you simply ask, synthesize these 100 interviews into 4 distinct data-backed customer personas.
And you get it instantly.
For each persona, give me their jobs to be done framework, their main financial frustrations, and 3 unique messaging angles we can use in ad copy.
It does in 5 minutes what used to take a month. And the crucial part is the grounding. If a stakeholder reads the report and doubts that a specific persona actually cares about a specific pain point,
Which stakeholders always do.
right, they always push back. You just click the citation, it takes you directly to the exact transcript at the exact timestamp where a real customer voiced that exact frustration. The trust is built in.
It means NotebookLM isn't really a single application, it's a chameleon. It has no shape of its own. It becomes exactly the software you need it to be based entirely on the files you feed into it and the instructions you give it.
It's a mirror for your data.
It's a legal assistant analyzing contracts. It's a senior engineer roasting your code. It's a continuity editor checking your fantasy lore. Or it's a strategic marketing analyst.
It is an incredibly powerful chameleon. But as with any exponential technology, we have to maintain a critical lens.
We can't just hype it up.
No, it is not without its flaws, its blind spots, and its costs. If we are going to be objective, we must address the limitations and the pitfalls, which brings us to our final reality check for 2026.
Right. Before you go and upload your entire life, your private diaries, your tax returns, and your company's proprietary source code into this tool, we need to talk about where it falls flat. Let's start with a massive blind spot, images.
NotebookLM has absolutely improved its multimodal capabilities over the last year, but it still cannot natively read complex images, charts, or dense infographics seamlessly the way it reads plain text.
It struggles.
It really does. When it encounters an image, it relies heavily on optical character recognition or OCR workarounds.
Which means it's basically just looking for letters printed inside the picture.
Exactly. If you have a highly complex engineering diagram that relies on color coding, spatial relationships, and tiny arrows to convey meaning, the AI will likely struggle to synthesize it accurately.
So what do people do?
The workaround is honestly clunky. Power users often have to bundle complex images into a PDF and manually write highly descriptive text captions and file names right next to the image.
Explaining it to the AI.
Basically explaining to the AI what the image means so the semantic text can be ingested into the vector database.
It requires a lot of hand-holding. And speaking of things it struggles with, if you are trying to use NotebookLM for heavy, direct math, forget about it entirely.
This is a fundamental limitation of the architecture. Large language models, at their core, are linguistic engines. They manipulate language tokens. They are not calculators.
They're talkers, not math nerds.
While they can extract numbers from text and organize them into data tables, as we discussed, it ingests it, vectorizes it, and locks it in. If your team updates the live Google Doc an hour later, your notebook is entirely blind to those changes.
The vector database doesn't auto-refresh.
It does not. You must manually click a refresh button to force the system to re-ingest and re-vectorize the new version of the document. If you try to use NotebookLM as a live dashboard for constantly updating data streams like livestock tickers, real-time server error logs, or a constantly shifting inventory database, you will fail miserably.
It's a deep research lab for an isolated, specific project.
Yeah.
It is not a live computational engine.
Exactly.
Which brings up a question about how this compares to the other AI tools everyone is using right now. If I already have Perplexity, or if my company uses Notion Q&A, why do I even need this?
It all comes down to the intent of the user. Perplexity functions as an advanced search engine. You use it to find new information on the live web that you didn't previously have.
Right.
Notion Q&A is an internal search tool designed to look across your entire existing company workspace just to find out where you put a specific policy or a meeting note.
It's a locator.
But NotebookLM is completely different. It is the dedicated, isolated workbench where you take a highly specific stack of curated materials, block out the rest of the world, and deeply synthesize them into a brand new insight or media format.
Okay, let's talk about the final catch, the one everyone's waiting for, the cost.
Ah, the pricing tiers.
In early 2026, Google finally introduced a structured pricing tier. We have the free tier, the pro tier at $19.99 a month, and the ultra tier at a massive $249.99 a month.
A hefty price tag.
Right. If I'm a student, a teacher, or just a casual user trying to organize my digital junk drawer, do I really need to drop $250 a month on the ultra plan to get the good stuff?
Absolutely not. In fact, Google has kept the free plan incredibly robust. The free tier gives you up to 100 different notebooks, allows 50 sources by notebook, and gives you full access to the 1 million token context window, the custom personas, and all the core text and audio studio features we discussed.
So it's basically fully featured.
For 90% of everyday users, the free tier is essentially giving you cognitive superpowers for $0.
So what are you actually paying for with the upgrades?
The pro tier, at $20 a month, bumps your source limit up to 300 documents per notebook. That is designed for serious academics, lawyers, or the indie authors writing 20-book series.
The heavy data hoarders.
Right. And the $250 Ultra tier is strictly designed for high-end enterprise users. It bumps the source limit to 600, but more importantly, it guarantees enterprise-grade data privacy.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning your uploaded data is legally ring-fenced and never used to train any of Google's foundational models. It also unlocks the high-end compute required for rendering those VO3 cinematic videos and allows for watermark-free commercial exports.
So if you aren't rendering cinematic supply chain videos for a Fortune 500 board meeting, just stick to the free or $20 plan.
Pretty much.
Okay, let's bring this all home. We have covered a massive amount of technical and practical ground today.
We really have.
We started by looking at a system built on a foundation of absolute trust, a closed, RAG-architected brain with a 1 million token memory that only speaks when it has the literal receipts to back up its claims.
A walled garden of truth.
We looked at how to take the wheel of that massive brain by building 10,000 character custom personas, fundamentally turning the AI from a passive reader into an active, critical teammate.
The cynical engineer.
We saw how it can autonomously curate research from the live web, structure messy, qualitative paragraphs into clean spreadsheets, and generate interactive dynamic podcasts and stunning visual slide decks.
And we grounded all of that theoretical technology in the reality of human application. We saw how parents, coaches, marketers, and authors are utilizing it to reduce the friction of thought.
Reducing the friction.
They are offloading the mechanical burden of memory and formatting so they can focus entirely on what truly matters: human decision-making, strategic creativity, and connection. Ultimately, NotebookLM is not just a summarizer. It is an engine for deep understanding.
It really is. It changes the fundamental relationship we have with our own information. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with a thought.
A parting thought.
A bit of a philosophical question to mull over as you close out your tabs today. If we now have access to this flawless digital second brain, a machine that perfectly memorizes, cross-references, and synthesizes every book, every dense article, and every messy note we've ever read, how does that change our biological brains?
That is the ultimate lingering question of this entire technological era. If we no longer have to struggle to exert the cognitive effort required to remember the details, what happens to our inherent human capacity for deep memory?
Exactly. Will outsourcing our memory make us intellectually lazy? Will we lose the ability to hold complex thoughts in our own head because the machine just does it for us?
It's a real fear.
Or, conversely, by freeing up all that mental RAM, by never having to panic about a forgotten plot point or a missing spreadsheet metric, will it allow us to reach levels of human creativity and conceptual thinking we've never seen before?
I like to hope for the latter.
When you don't have to spend your precious energy just remembering the facts, what will you do with all that freed up brain space?
It is something profound to think about as you begin to organize your own digital junk drawer and build your first notebook.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.